Just wanted to highlight that this Friday to Saturday, we have our 24 hours of prayer, as you can see here, if you're on anything but Instagram. Um, and yeah, we have a few slots in the afternoon to fill up, but then we have a bigger hole throughout the night. So I'm calling on young people, young adults, night owls, whatever, to come to the fore, to get with the program, and to sign up, to get in touch. Details are on your screen, or you will have seen them. They'll be somewhere if you're on Instagram. Look me up on Instagram, they'll be somewhere on there. Give us a shout. Cool. So part two, chapter 2 of Jonah. I wonder for you, what represents rock bottom? What was that time when you thought of you thought you were at rock bottom, and then maybe something else happened as well? There have been times in my very nearly 36 years. Oh, I'm old, aren't I? Very nearly 36 years that um, that I felt like things are the only way is up, as it were. That things can only get better, that kind of jazz. And then something else goes on, and something else happens, and it brings you down just a little bit further. You think, I'm at a low ebb, I'm done with this, I'm fed up, and blah blah blah, and then something else happens. That's not to be totally doom and gloom, um, but that's just the reality sometimes. I wonder, have you had a time like that? Have you had a time that just felt like nothing else could go wrong, and then something else goes wrong? Quite often, those things happen when I'm preparing for an all age service, an all together service, or some kind of big event where you think, okay, we're past the worst of it, we're nearly there. There's like 2 hours to go before opening. Everything seems organized, and then somebody comes to you and says, by the way, by the way, the soundboard's not working, or the microphones aren't working, or the band hasn't turned up, or whatever that is. And then you go, what's going on? But for you, that might be something totally different. Yeah, I remember when I was 12, and I'd had ME from the age of 8 or so. I'd had ME, uh, and that was rough, and I missed a heck of a lot of school, and just kind of managed to scrape through each year and not have to repeat. Um, and then when I was 12, I was off for about 10 weeks, I think it was, in a row. I think so. And we decided to go back to the doctor and see if everything was the same as it was, or if it was something new. And as it turned out, it was something new. And it seems that from what they thought, maybe the stress of missing lots of school and being ill and all the rest of it had given me diabetes too. So the low ebb that I was at of missing lots of school and feeling ill and tired and sore all the time, um, was just heaped on with being diabetic now as well, and having to get used to a whole new thing. Um, and I know he watches these, so yeah, sorry, Dad, but there's only a few times that I've seen my dad cry, um, and this was one of them, because he took me to the doctors, and when the doctor told me that I needed to go straight to the hospital, that I was um, diabetic, uh, that was one of the maybe 3 or 4 times in my life that I really remember. I'm sure there'd be more times, but I really remember my dad crying. Um, and so for me, that was pretty rough. But for him as well, who had seen that and seen what had gone on and watched me, that was really rough. It was one of those times when it probably felt for him and all of us together as a family as rock bottom for me. Um, and there had been other times as well through my mental health had suffered, and I basically had a breakdown and stuff like that. As a in P7, I think I was, as a 10, 11 year old. Um, and God answered prayers and got us through it, and all the rest of it. But what does rock bottom represent for you? For Jonah, um, there's this language that's used in the story so far about going down. So he goes, after he is instructed by God what to do, he goes down to Joppa, he goes down to the ship, he goes down to the depths of the ship, and he now in chapter 2, the whale has rescued him, so far, and he goes down to the very depths of the ocean. Now, I wonder what picture you have in your head for Jonah. I wish we had longer, but we could talk about this all day. I wonder what picture you have in your head, because films like Pinocchio and stuff like that have maybe slightly misinterpreted what I think it was like for Jonah in the belly of the fish. Probably a whale, probably a whale. That maybe you feel like it was one of those pictures where you can he has a wee fire going in there, and he's able to fry himself up some fish that the whale has swallowed, and stuff like that. And yeah, I haven't got the picture up, but I have in the past when telling the Jonah story got a picture up of inside the stomach of, or the contents of the stomach of a whale or a large fish, and it is grim. It is grim. In 3 days, he probably would have had reasonably bleached skin from the contents of the fish's stomach. He wouldn't have had like lots of room to breathe and to walk about and to have a dander or a swim around in the contents of a whale's stomach. It would have been a bit tighter, I think, than we imagine. He wouldn't have been sitting in a stray boat that happened to wash in and stuff like that. It wouldn't have been like that. It says that he had seaweed wrapped around his head, and it's not like if it was wrapped around his head, it's not like that. I'm guessing he couldn't just sort of get it off, but he was encased in stuff. He couldn't really move very much. But what he is able to do is pray. You see, when we preach this and we talk about this, we might talk about how when you are at that low ebb that God will rescue you, and that's true, but can be true, can be true. But it's interesting for Jonah that being at rock bottom wasn't the thing. Being at rock bottom wasn't the thing that helped him. It was praying at rock bottom that helped him, really. You see, Jonah had done this, la 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 la, from the moment that God instructed him to go to Nineveh, because he, in essence, was, some people would call it patriotic, but actually he was probably a little bit racist. Maybe that's not the word either. But he didn't like Nineveh because they weren't God's people. And he knew or felt that God's grace and mercy was only for his people, for the Hebrews. And so he didn't want to be involved in extending that grace and mercy. So mercy is not getting what you deserve, which is, the wages of sin are death. And grace is getting much more than you deserve. So getting to be in a relationship with God, which is effectively what God is doing here. God is trying to bring these Gentiles, even in the Old Testament, into some kind of relationship with him. And Jonah is not prepared to be a part of that, which sucks. And it's a blind spot for Jonah. although he runs, I don't think he's fully aware of why he's running. He's not even sure why his nationalism is wrong. He's not sure why he doesn't even know that that's a problem, because that is the way that they had been taught. Maybe that is the way that he had chosen to listen, to believe. But at rock bottom, Jonah prays, and he praises. Um, and when he does that, Jonah doesn't get proof. He's not saved first. He doesn't get saved from this situation. Then he goes, "Oh, thank you, God, praise you." Jonah actually comes under some kind of realization that he is low. That actually, compared to God, that he has no power in this situation. That he cannot possibly save himself. And in that he cannot possibly save himself, he cries out to God in helplessness. God, save me. God, you are God. You are in control. He talks about your waves, and you did this, and yeah. But you brought my life up from the pit, O Lord my God. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord. You see, it was only when he was his life was ebbing away, he was dying in the belly of the fish. It took him that low ebb, that rock bottom, to actually cry out. You see, he has this, what Tim Keller calls this buoyant self-sufficiency, where he thought that if he just did something else, if he just made another decision, if he just went his way one more time, that everything would work out. But that's not how it happens, is it? That's not how it happens. I wonder if you've ever seen an exercise video of some kind of celebrity who lost a lot of weight and does an exercise video. And I wonder how often have you ever questioned the fact that maybe, just maybe, once they make the money from that exercise video, or before, with their celebrity money, that they've had a bit of plastic surgery, a bit of a nip or a tuck, or they've had personal trainers, or to get them back in shape, or whatever it is, or after they've done the video, sometimes they go back to the way they were. They put a load of weight back on, because it's not real. It's not this self-sufficient, I can do this thing that they present in the video. There's a whole lot more going on. And you know what? When it comes to our salvation, when it comes to us being saved by God, it's not that God partly saves us and we partly save us. God is solely responsible for our salvation. There is nothing you can do to make God love you more. There's nothing you can do to make God love you less. There's nothing you can achieve in life to cause your salvation. God is solely responsible. There is no self-help book that will get you to heaven. It is the realization of our own sin and our reliance on God that will get us there. Now we're going to find out next, I have to finish, we're going to find out next that Jonah didn't fully get his blind spot. He didn't fully understand it, and he didn't fully learn the lesson, even at that low ebb. But thankfully and mercifully, God works with us. We are not perfect. We never will be until, we see Jesus face to face and all that. Jesus is perfect. But God works with us in our imperfection. Christians, stop presenting yourselves as perfect, because you are not, but He is. Amen.